When I saw my step-grandson using his tool in that way, I couldn't help myself and immediately thought of I'm here to tell you about something that happened to me a while ago, at the start of July. My name is Roxanne, but everyone calls me Roxy. I'm a well-groomed, polite, and very affectionate lady. My body is well-maintained. Believe it or not, I still train to stay in shape. I'm on the shorter side, fair-skinned, with short brown hair and a prominent front, which always makes it difficult for me to find a good bra. I've always considered myself a respectful woman. I'm a confectioner and have worked in this field for years, gaining quite a bit of experience. My life is usually quiet and peaceful, and sometimes I'm a bit shy. But over time, and especially through my interactions with my step-grandson, I've started to come out of my shell. His name is Jackson. He's 25, tall, strong, and well-built. Whenever I find myself alone or in need of company, he's always there for me. Now I know why his mother, my deceased husband's daughter, lives far away in another state. He comes to visit me from time to time, each time seeming a bit bolder than the last, with a hint of mischief in his eyes. I live alone in a house with a yard, and when he arrived, I greeted my step-grandson with a big hug. During the hug, I felt his hands lightly lingering, though I didn't mention it. Afterward, he went to take a shower, and I went back to making sweets, thinking I'd get some more work done. But soon enough, Jackson interrupted me, calling out and asking for a towel. I grabbed one, went upstairs, and approached the bathroom. When I arrived at the door, I saw Jackson for the first time in that way, completely revealed. It was the first time I'd seen his tool, and it was captivating. At that moment, I forgot two important things. I was there just to hand him a towel, and the fact that Jackson is my step-grandson, which could make the situation feel wrong. I knocked on the door and stepped inside. "Grandmom, you didn't have to come in. I didn't want you to see me like this," he said. I just replied, "What's beautiful deserves to be seen, and as your grandmom, I can come in whenever I want." I noticed him starting to blush, so I thought about how men his age often react to a woman like me in such situations. I was certain that, at that moment, Jackson may have forgotten I was his grandmom though not her own, as his tools started to respond. He quickly grabbed the towel and covered himself. It was then that I realized that the next few days might bring a few surprises. From that moment on, I began subtly teasing my step-grandson. It was actually him who initiated things, though, hugging me closely and letting his hands linger. He laughed and said, "Stop being mischievous, Roxy, and don't you dare tell my mother." I'd be mortified. I laughed along with him because I was enjoying this newfound intimacy. I never imagined that my step-grandson and I would ever feel this way toward each other, but there was something thrilling about it that went straight to my head. Afterward, I left the bathroom and went back to finish preparing our meal. We ate and went to bed as if nothing had happened, and I kept my promise not to mention it again. But in the back of my mind, I was already forming a plan. The next morning, Jackson woke up, and I decided to play a little prank I'd seen in some of those adult movies. I pretended to be stuck in the washing machine and began calling out for my step-grandson, over and over, without stopping. As I stayed stuck in the washing machine, I heard Jackson's voice behind me, sounding a bit panicked. "What's wrong, Grandmom? What happened? You keep calling me." "Help your step-grandmom out here, boy," I said playfully. "I got stuck in the washing machine, so be careful when you pull me out." I heard him mutter under his breath, "Look at what this woman does to me. How am I supposed to keep myself under control with her teasing me like this?" He must have thought I didn't hear, with my head inside the washing machine, but I was hanging on to every word. He stepped closer and tried to pull me out, but in the process, he kept brushing up against me, his touch sending a thrill down my spine. "Help me, honey, "Don't leave me like this," I said, keeping my tone light but suggestive. "Grandmom, I'm trying to help, but—" He seemed to be struggling with his words, and I could sense his hesitation. "Can I tell you something?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. "Of course, darling," I replied calmly, even though I felt the tension building inside. I could tell he was gearing up to share something, a feeling or confession that he hadn't shared before. He paused as if searching for the right words. "I won't be able to stay here for long," he admitted, sounding both shy and frustrated. "If you were a man, you'd understand what I'm going through." Feigning innocence, I looked back at him with a questioning expression. "What's wrong, Jackson? Are you feeling okay?" I asked with a tone of playful naivety. Jackson shook his head and sighed, resigned. "It's not that, Mom," he said, struggling to put his feelings into words. "It's you. Seeing you like this is, well, let's just say it's making it hard to think straight. If I keep going, I might end up doing something. I don't know if you'd like it." The weight of his confession hung in the air, and I could feel the inner conflict he was battling with. The look in his eyes was a mix of discomfort, temptation, and tension. While he seemed to be grappling with his own feelings, I was enjoying the thrill of the moment, drawing out this game just a bit longer. Seeing him torn, I decided to take a softer approach, pretending not to understand. "I don't know what you're talking about, Jackson. Just try pulling me out one more time. I think this time I can manage to get free." He, still believing I was truly stuck, tried once more to help me with renewed strength. This time, I let myself slide out easily, as though his efforts had finally worked. The satisfaction on his face made it clear he felt like the hero of the situation, unaware that I had planned this all along. With a soft whisper, he sighed in relief. He hadn't yet realized that the entire scenario had been orchestrated by me from the start. However, as he looked at me, I noticed a shift in his body language. He was visibly trying to suppress a mix of excitement and embarrassment, unsure of how to respond to the situation. The unspoken tension between us lingered, both of us aware that something fundamental had shifted, even though neither of us wanted to acknowledge it outright. The thrill of our little game hung in the air, an invisible bond between us that only grew stronger with each word, each glance. When he quickly stood up, almost automatically announcing he was going to take a shower, I could tell he was trying to escape the awkwardness of the moment, maybe to calm down. He seemed confused by what was happening, while I, on the other hand, felt completely in control. "Remember when I said I could go into the bathroom whenever I wanted? I meant it from the start. I had a plan, and every move I made was calculated. The ideal moment was approaching, and all I had to do was wait for the perfect time to act." As soon as he entered the bathroom, the opportunity presented itself. My heart pounded harder, not from nerves, but from the rush of adrenaline. Approaching the door, I heard a peculiar sound, almost rhythmic, though it was difficult to identify right away. It sounded a bit like soft clapping. Curiosity got the better of me, and without overthinking, I bent down to peek through the keyhole. That's when I saw what was happening. Inside, alone and unaware that I was there, Jackson was in an intimate moment, focusing entirely on himself. I confess it took me by surprise, but it stirred something in me I hadn't felt before. A rush of curiosity and excitement that was completely new. There I stood, captivated, as time seemed to slow. He had no idea I was there, watching with a mix of amazement and fascination. Suddenly, I saw he was about to finish, and on an impulse, I turned the handle and opened the door, interrupting him abruptly. His shock was immediate. Jackson jumped back, visibly startled, his expression caught between shock and embarrassment. "Grandmom, what are you doing? You scared me half to death," he exclaimed, trying to regain his composure. But I stayed calm and composed, as though nothing unusual had happened. "Didn't I say I'd go into the bathroom whenever I wanted?" I replied confidently. "Well, I've decided it's the perfect time for my shower, and I want to take it now. May I?" He blinked, still processing, then replied with a slightly nervous smile. "Sure, go ahead, Grandma, but just so you know, I'm not responsible for what might happen." I smiled, seeing him try to keep control, and decided to push just a bit further, making it clear I understood more than he thought. "Oh, and what exactly do you mean by that, Jackson? Are you talking about your tool?" I glanced down, where he was still trying to conceal what had just happened. "There's no use in hiding it. I saw what you were doing." His face turned a deep shade of red, and he stayed silent, clearly at a loss for words. I knew he hadn't expected this reaction from me. It wasn't my intention to make him feel embarrassed, but the surprise of my directness had caught him off guard. After a moment of silence he mumbled, "You left me like this. It's your fault." I met his gaze, feeling the intensity of the moment, and replied, "So it was my fault, was it? Let me fix that now." The tension in the air was undeniable, something unexpected and electric. Without further thought, I leaned in and kissed him under the warm shower water cascading over us, heightening the closeness and connection in the moment. It was the first time I had ever acted so impulsively, allowing myself to give in to something completely out of the ordinary, especially with my step-grandson, someone I never thought I'd be close to in such a way. At first, I surprised even myself with my actions, but as the minutes passed, I realized that I was enjoying it immensely. Every touch, every movement seemed to awaken something new in me, as if what was happening was both wrong and irresistible at the same time. Reality was knocking on the door, but in that moment, all that mattered was what we were doing together under the shower, with water pouring down as though trying to cool the fire igniting within me. He looked at me with a sideways smile, mixing surprise and a hint of mischief. "You really are mean, aren't you? You provoked me on purpose, didn't you?" His voice was filled with both accusation and jest, as if he'd pieced together that everything up to this point had been planned by me. "I was just testing you, darling," I replied with a mischievous smile of my own. "And congratulations. You passed with flying colors." At that point, there were no barriers left between us. The game was clear, and the tension that once existed had transformed into pure mutual desire. We knew it shouldn't be happening, but stopping felt impossible. In that small bathroom, with the water running, we shared our first truly intimate moment. It was intense, surreal, almost as if we were in a different world where nothing else mattered. Each touch, each movement was charged with a sense of urgency I'd never felt before. Time seemed to stand still as we explored every part of each other, swept up on a wave of adrenaline and connection. When it finally ended, I felt completely relaxed, yet still energized from everything that had happened. About 30 minutes later, I left the bathroom, still feeling the effects of our time together. My breathing was heavy, and my heart still raced in my chest. The memory of what we had just done echoed in my mind, and the mix of satisfaction with anticipation for what could still unfold filled me with excitement. I walked into the living room, where I knew he would soon join me. There was something in the air, an electricity between us, even from different rooms. I sat on the sofa, still damp from the shower, waiting, knowing it wouldn't be long before we might be drawn back to that undeniable desire. Before continuing with this real account of infidelity, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. As I sat there, minutes passed slowly, and I reflected on everything that had happened. Would it change things between us? Was what had happened only the beginning of something bigger that I might not be able to control? One thing was certain. That afternoon had changed everything. There was no going back. We were now connected in a way that was completely different, and something told me we'd soon find ourselves drawn back into the fire that had been lit between us. When he returned, he didn't just sit down beside me. He came close, close enough that I could feel his breath. The atmosphere felt even spicier this time, and his curiosity was evident. Jackson looked at me directly, almost as if he were mesmerized. My face began to heat up, embarrassment creeping over me. It was becoming common for him to look at me that way, and the intensity of his gaze left me unsure of how to respond. I tried to hide my embarrassment, but he noticed, breaking the ice with a laugh. I felt relieved and joined in, the tension melting away and transforming into something lighter, almost humorous. It was amazing how quickly things could change between us, from something tense to shared laughter. Then, out of nowhere, Jackson leaned in and began playfully nuzzling against my shoulders as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I was so taken aback that I didn't say anything. He laughed as he did it, his words light yet full of affection. "Grandma, you're amazing. I love every detail about you." Despite his playful tone, the sincerity behind his words caught me off guard, and I could feel his genuine affection shining through. He was admiring me in a way I had never imagined, and it touched me deeply. When he said that I looked beautiful, that he loved every detail about me, I knew it wasn't just a joke. He truly saw something in me that I hadn't seen for a long time. That filled me with a joy I couldn't quite describe. Maybe it was the simple fact that I felt important again, or perhaps it was the unconditional love he showed so openly. Not knowing how to react, I simply smiled shyly, his words touching me more than I expected. I blushed, feeling so embarrassed that I couldn't hide it. My beloved Jackson was leaving me speechless, unsure of how to respond, yet there was a tenderness in the moment that made me smile. While I was still processing everything, Jackson leaned in and gave me a soft kiss on the cheek. It was a simple gesture, but it carried so much affection that I felt warmth in my chest, a good feeling I hadn't experienced in a while. In that small act, he seemed to be showing me just how much he loved me and how much he cared. I decided to let the moment flow, allowing my Jackson to express his affection in his own way, without worrying about right or wrong. After all, I trusted him with all my heart. He was my step-grandson, and I knew there was a genuine bond between us. "Okay, Jackson. Now what do you want Grandma to do?" I asked with a smile, freed from my worries. He looked at me and said, "It's all yours." We went into the bathroom together once more, and this time, everything felt even more intense than before. The hot water poured over us, enhancing every sensation. Without words, we were in sync, each understanding what the other wanted. The bath became much more intimate, much deeper, as if the warmth of the water and the feeling of being close intensified everything. Later in the evening, it happened again. We met in an unspoken fantasy, exchanging glances and gentle touches that spoke volumes. And the next day, and the day after that, it continued. Throughout that week, time seemed to stand still, each touch, each kiss more electrifying than the last. I realized I was living the best week of my last 30 years, as if a part of me had come alive again. My step-grandson had awakened something in me, showing me just how much life there still was to enjoy. At 65, I felt more alive than ever. I decided I wanted to embrace all that life and my body still had to offer. I wanted to feel, experience, and be unashamed of who I am. After all, life doesn't have a set age to start truly living it. Now that I've rediscovered myself, I feel an irresistible urge to go out more, meet people, and enjoy life with anyone who wants to be by my side. I don't care about others' judgments. I own my body and my life, and I'm going to enjoy every moment of it. These recent experiences have been a complete rediscovery, each moment bringing a new sense of freedom. I'm no longer afraid of what people might think. The opinions of others no longer define who I am. If anyone wants to join me on this journey, they're welcome, because I'm ready to embrace all that life can still offer without limitations. These moments I've shared are only the beginning, and I'm sure there's so much more to come. If you liked my story, subscribe to my channel and leave a like. I'd love to share even more with you.